A child disappears in the middle of the night, and when found, whispers that she is a monster. The desperate father discovers that the therapist he hired may be feeding this terror. Lies, manipulation, and a dark plan threaten to destroy what remains of the family. But a brave nanny and a hidden truth may be their only chance of salvation. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue! The wind from the Mantiqueira Mountains blew through the ancient trees surrounding the Montgomery estate in Jordansfield. The house lights illuminated the well-kept garden, where dew was beginning to form on the hydrangea petals. The living room clock struck 9:30 when Theodore Montgomery's scream echoed through the mansion's wooden corridors. Valentina! Valentina, where are you? Theodore, one of London's most successful real estate moguls, ran from room to room, desperation etched on his face. Since the passing of his wife, Cecilia, 8 months ago due to complications from a rare illness, he had lived only for his 6-year-old daughter, Lucy Oliver. The nanny, who had been working in the house for only 4 months, joined the search, her heart racing with worry. They had put Valentina to bed an hour earlier, and now the bed was empty, the unicorn sheets tossed on the floor. "Mr. Montgomery, have you checked under the bed?" "She likes to hide there when she's scared," Lucy suggested, bending down to look. "I've looked everywhere. In the closet, behind the curtains, in the bathroom," Theodore replied, running his hands through his dark hair in a gesture of anxiety. "God, what if someone got in here? What if—" "Don't think about that," Lucy interrupted, trying to stay calm. The house was secure with a sophisticated alarm system and located in a gated community. "Let's search the rest of the house." She must be playing hide-and-seek. The two searched every corner of the 2-story mansion. The living room with its caramel leather sofas, the library filled with books Cecilia had loved so much, the spacious kitchen where Valentina adored watching chocolate cakes being prepared. No sign of the girl. That's when they heard it. A distant sob coming from the garden. Theodore ran outside, followed by Lucy. The sound guided them to the wooden doghouse built for Thor, the family's chocolate Labrador. Kneeling on the damp grass, Theodore peeked through the small opening. There was Valentina huddled in the darkest corner of the doghouse, clutching the large Labrador. Her small body swayed back and forth as she repeated in a low, almost inaudible voice, "I'm a monster, I'm a monster, I'm a monster." "Sweetheart," Theodore exclaimed, reaching out his arms to her. "Come to Daddy, my love." But Valentina curled up even more, pressing Thor against her. The dog, sensing his little owner's distress, remained still, as if understanding his role as protector. "No, I don't want to. I'm a monster," the girl cried, tears streaming down her round face. Lucy knelt beside Theodore and spoke in a soft voice. "Valentina, it's Lucy. Can I come in there with you and Thor? It's getting cold out here." After a few moments of silence, Valentina nodded slightly. Lucy, with her slender body, managed to squeeze into the doghouse. She sat beside the girl without touching her, just waiting for her to calm down. "What happened, little one?" Lucy asked after a while, as Thor licked the tears from Valentina's face. "Aunt Deborah said I'm a defective girl," Valentina whispered, so low that Lucy had to lean closer to hear. "She said Daddy doesn't really love me because I'm a monster, and that if I tell anyone our secret, something very bad will happen." Theodore, who was listening to everything from the doghouse entrance, felt as if an icy hand gripped his heart. Dr. Deborah Albright was the child therapist he had hired to help Valentina overcome the trauma of losing her mother. The professional had excellent references, training from renowned universities, and a method that, according to her, was revolutionary in treating grieving children. "That's not true." "Sweetheart," Theodore said, his voice choked, "Daddy loves you more than anything in this world. You are the most important person in my life." Valentina looked at her father with frightened eyes and quickly looked away. "She said you would say that, but that it's a lie. That you get tired of taking care of me." Lucy felt a shiver run down her spine. Something was profoundly wrong. In her years working with children, she had never seen a therapeutic treatment cause such terror in a child. "Valentina, shall we go inside?" "It's getting cold and you need to sleep." "Thor can come too," Lucy suggested. The girl hesitated but finally agreed. With Thor by her side, she followed Lucy back into the house. Theodore walked a few steps behind, his face a mask of worry and confusion. As she settled Valentina in bed, Lucy noticed the dried tear marks on the girl's face and her swollen eyes from crying so much. "Do you want to tell me more about what Aunt Deborah said?" she asked gently. Valentina shook her head, fear evident in her brown eyes. "I can't, it's a secret. She'll know if I tell." At that moment, Theodore entered the room carrying a glass of sugar water. "Here, princess. This will help you sleep better." The girl took the glass with trembling hands but didn't drink. She looked at the liquid suspiciously, as if it might contain something dangerous. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "It's just sugar water like Grandma used to make when you were nervous," Theodore explained, worried by his daughter's reaction. "Aunt Deborah said medicine can taste sweet," Valentina murmured. Theodore and Lucy exchanged alarmed glances. What was happening in those sessions with that therapist? "Sweetheart, tomorrow we'll talk to Dr. Albright, okay? I'll ask her about these secrets," Theodore said, trying to keep his voice firm despite the anger that was beginning to grow within him. "No," Valentina cried, knocking over the glass. Water spilled onto the sheet. "Please, Daddy, don't tell her I spoke. She'll be angry. She'll take me away from you." Lucy hugged Valentina, who was now trembling uncontrollably. "No one is going to take you anywhere, little one. I promise." After almost an hour, Valentina finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying. Lucy changed the wet sheets, while Theodore watched his daughter sleep, the dog lying by the bed like a guardian. In the hallway, out of Valentina's earshot, Theodore confronted Lucy. "What do you think is happening?" "I hired Dr. Albright because she's considered one of the best child therapists in the country. She's worked with traumatized children for over 15 years. Lucy hesitated before answering. She didn't want to appear to be questioning Theodore's decisions, but her intuition screamed that something was terribly wrong. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm not an expert, but in all my years taking care of children, I've never seen therapy make a child feel so terrified. Valentina is afraid of being taken away, of being punished. That doesn't seem like healthy treatment to me." Theodore ran a hand over his face, feeling the weight of tiredness and worry. "Deborah always tells me that the therapeutic process has its ups and downs, that Valentina is in the confrontation with trauma phase. She uses technical terms that I barely understand." "And have you ever attended a session?" Lucy asked. "No. Deborah insists she needs privacy with Valentina to establish trust. She says my presence would alter the therapeutic dynamic." Lucy bit her lip, holding back what she really wanted to say. "I understand, but maybe it would be good for you to consider a second opinion?" Theodore nodded slowly. "I'll talk to her tomorrow. I want to understand what these secrets are that are scaring my daughter so much." What neither of them knew was that the horror was just beginning. In the dim light of the hallway, they made a silent promise to protect Valentina, without imagining how difficult that task would be in the coming days. The next morning, the Jordansfield sun illuminated the mansion, but it couldn't dispel the shadows that seemed to have settled within its walls. Theodore woke early after a restless night's sleep. He passed by Valentina's room and found her sleeping, hugging Thor, the Labrador who hadn't left her side since the incident. In the kitchen, Lucy was already preparing breakfast, her skilled hands slicing fruit for a colorful salad that usually cheered Valentina up. Her face, however, carried the same worry that consumed Theodore. "How is she?" Lucy asked when she saw her boss enter. "Still sleeping. She finally got some rest," he replied, pouring himself coffee. "I called Dr. Albright. She's coming earlier today at 5 in the afternoon instead of the usual 7. Lucy nodded, trying to hide her apprehension. There was something about the doctor that had never inspired her confidence, despite her impeccable demeanor and impressive resume. "Mr. Montgomery, would you mind if I stayed nearby during the conversation? I can help observe Valentina's reaction." Theodore considered for a moment. "I think it's better not to, Lucy. Deborah has made it clear several times that she prefers to deal with Valentina without interference. She said that multiple adult figures can confuse the child during treatment." "I understand," Lucy replied, though she disagreed deeply. In her experience, the more support a traumatized child had, the better. "And today's session, will it happen normally?" "Yes, but first I'm going to have a serious talk with her about what happened yesterday." The day dragged on in an almost palpable tension. Valentina woke late, ate little, and remained quiet. drawing at the living room table while Thor rested his head on her lap. Theodore noticed that the drawings, once colorful and cheerful, were now dominated by dark colors, black, brown, red, forming abstract and confused figures. At 5 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Thor immediately raised his head and growled, something he had never done before. Valentina dropped her pencil, her small body stiffening with fear. "It's her, Daddy," she whispered, her eyes wide. "Auntie is here." Theodore stroked his daughter's hair. "It's all right, Princess. Daddy will talk to her first, okay?" Opening the door, he was met by Deborah Albright, impeccable as always in her grey pantsuit, brown hair pulled back in a perfect bun, and the expensive leather briefcase under her arm. Her penetrating green eyes matched the professional smile that never seemed to fully reach her face. "Good afternoon, Theodore. I received your message. Did something happen to our Valentina?" she asked, entering the house with the familiarity of someone who had frequented the place for months. "We need to talk privately," he replied, leading her to the study. As they passed through the living room, Deborah cast a glance at Valentina, who immediately lowered her head. Lucy, who was organizing the drawing materials, did not miss the subtle change in the girl's posture, from tense to completely submissive. In the study, Theodore explained what had happened the night before. With each word, Deborah's face became more professional and less accessible. "Theodore," she said finally, after he finished his account, "what we are seeing is a classic manifestation of the trauma projection phase. Valentina is transferring negative feelings to me that are actually directed at her mother's absence. But she said you called her defective. That I don't love her," Theodore argued, frustration evident in his voice. Deborah smiled understandingly. "This is called therapeutic regression. It's when the child's mind distorts words and concepts to protect itself from painful reality. I would never call your daughter defective. We work with the concept of acceptance of emotional limitations, which for a 6-year-old can sound frightening." "And the secrets? Why does my daughter think something bad will happen if she talks about the sessions?" "Part of the controlled reality confrontation method," Deborah explained, her tone soft but authoritative. "We establish a safe space of trust that, for the child, seems like a special secret. It's a recognized technique to build therapeutic rapport with reluctant children." Theodore felt his resolve waver. Deborah's technical and confident discourse made his concerns seem exaggerated, almost paranoid. Wasn't he, in his desperation to protect Valentina, misinterpreting the situation? "Doctor, I trust your work, but I need to better understand what happens in the sessions. Valentina is terrified." "Theodore," Deborah leaned forward, her expensive perfume filling the air between them. "Suffering is part of progress. Valentina is facing the trauma of maternal loss, and that hurts. She fantasizes fears because it's easier than facing the true pain. It's normal to resist treatment. It's a sign that we are reaching the deepest layers of trauma." When they left the study, Lucy noticed Theodore's confused expression. He seemed torn, as if part of him wanted to believe the professional, while another part still harbored suspicion. The session with Valentina began as usual. Deborah requested privacy, and everyone left the girl's room. Theodore went to his study, trying to concentrate on work emails. Lucy remained in the hallway, restless, organizing clothes in the closet near Valentina's bedroom door. That's when she heard it. First Deborah's calm professional voice, then inaudible murmurs, and then a muffled sob. Lucy approached the door, her heart racing. Normally she would respect the session's privacy, but her intuition screamed that something was wrong. Through the slightly ajar door, she saw Valentina sitting on the floor, arms around her knees, crying silently. Deborah stood looking at the girl with an expression Lucy had never seen before, harsh, almost cruel. "You know what happens to girls who don't obey, don't you?" Deborah was saying, her voice completely different from the one she used with Theodore. "Your father is tired of taking care of a girl like you. He would be happier if you disappeared." Lucy's blood ran cold. Without thinking, she burst through the door. "What is going on here?" she demanded, entering the room. In an instant, Deborah's expression changed. The harsh face gave way to a professional, concerned smile. "Lucy, you are interrupting a critical therapeutic session. Please leave. I heard what you said to her," Lucy accused, trembling with indignation. "This isn't therapy, it's psychological torture." Valentina looked from one to the other, her little eyes wide with panic. Deborah approached the girl and placed a hand on her shoulder. Valentina visibly flinched at the touch. Valentina is going through an intense moment of emotional confrontation. What you heard was part of a technique called inverse mirroring, where we verbalize the child's internal fears so she can process them externally, Deborah explained calmly. It's understandable that it may seem disturbing to lay people, but it's a scientifically validated approach. At that moment, Theodore appeared at the door, drawn by the noise. "What's happening?" he asked, looking confused at the scene. Valentina huddled and crying, Lucy red with anger, and Deborah with her imperturbable demeanor. "Your nanny interrupted a crucial moment of therapy," Deborah explained. "We were using an advanced controlled exposure technique, and her intervention could jeopardize weeks of progress." "She was yelling at Valentina," Lucy protested, "saying that you would be happier if she disappeared." Theodore looked horrified at the therapist, who shook her head with a sad smile. "Theodore, I understand your confusion, but this is exactly the technique I explained, verbalizing internal fears to demystify them. Valentina is afraid of being a burden, of you being better off without her. By expressing that fear aloud, we create a space for her to realize how unfounded it is." Theodore looked at his daughter, who now had her face hidden between her knees. "Valentina, is that true? Was the doctor helping you understand your fears?" The girl didn't answer, just continued crying softly. Thor, who was outside the room, began to scratch at the door, barking anxiously. "See? She can't even answer," Lucy insisted. "Because she's emotionally overwhelmed," Deborah retorted. And now more confused by this interruption, she turned to Theodore with a grave expression. "Theodore, I need to be clear. Unprofessional interventions during treatment can cause serious setbacks. I strongly suggest that Ms. Lucy no longer interfere in the sessions." Theodore hesitated, torn between his trust in the professional and the genuine concern in Lucy's eyes. "Lucy, I think it's best if you leave," he finally said. "Let's let Dr. Albright complete the session." "But Mr. Montgomery," Lucy began. Incredulous. "Please, Lucy, don't make things harder." With a heavy heart, Lucy left the room. As she passed, she saw Valentina briefly lift her face, her eyes silently pleading for help. The door closed, leaving the girl alone with the therapist. In the following days, the tension in the mansion was palpable. Valentina became even more withdrawn. She refused to eat at the table, hiding food in her pockets and under the bed. At night, Lucy frequently found her sleeping on the closet floor, or on the most difficult nights in Thor's doghouse in the garden. Theodore began to notice the changes too. His daughter, who used to run into his arms when he came home from work, now flinched when he approached. On the rare occasions she spoke, it was in whispers, as if she feared being overheard. Every day at 7 in the evening the doorbell rang, announcing Deborah's arrival. And every day Thor would start barking furiously, while Valentina ran to hide. But Theodore, caught between grief for his wife and desperation to help his daughter, continued to trust the expertise of the renowned therapist. Lucy, in turn, observed. She noticed how Valentina was a different child when Deborah wasn't around, still traumatized, yes, but capable of small smiles, of moments of childish curiosity. And how she transformed into a frightened shadow minutes before the therapist's arrival, until on a rainy night everything changed. Lucy was tidying Valentina's room, while the girl was taking a bath. Opening the sock drawer, she found a drawing hidden among the folded items. In it, a large dark figure with red eyes leaned over a small, cowering silhouette. And at the bottom of the paper, written in Valentina's uneven handwriting, "Aunt Deborah is going to give me medicine to sleep forever." Lucy's blood ran cold. This was no longer just a suspicion, it was a cry for help. Lucy spent the night awake, Valentina's drawing hidden between the pages of her diary. The rain continued to fall over Jordansfield, creating a curtain of water that further isolated the mansion from the outside world. With each thunderclap, she heard Valentina's light footsteps running to Thor's bed, seeking comfort in the furry friend who never judged her. In the morning, with deep dark circles under her eyes and a renewed determination, Lucy made a decision. She waited until Theodore left for a video conference in his study and approached Valentina, who was distractedly playing with building blocks. "Val," she called softly, sitting on the floor beside the girl. "Do you remember the drawing you made? The one I found in your drawer?" Valentina's eyes widened with fear. She quickly looked from side to side, as if searching for hidden cameras or ears. "Did you show Daddy?" she whispered. "No, little one. But we need to talk about it. What did you mean by medicine to sleep forever?" The girl hugged her knees, rocking back and forth. Thor, sensing her distress, approached and nudged her arm with his snout. "Aunt Deborah said if I tell our secrets, she'll give me special medicine," Valentina murmured, so softly that Lucy had to lean in to hear. "Medicine that makes little children sleep forever, just like Mommy." Lucy felt a chill run down her spine. Did that woman's manipulation have no limits, using her mother's death to threaten a 6-year-old child? "Val, listen to Lucy," she said, gently holding the girl's cold little hands. "No one is going to give you any medicine. I promise I'll protect you, but I need you to tell me what happens in the sessions with Aunt Deborah. What does she do that makes you so scared?" Valentina hesitated, her lips trembling. "She says I'm a bad girl. That Mommy left because of me. That Daddy only takes care of me out of obligation." Thick tears began to roll down her pale face. "She says that if I leave, Daddy can find a new Mommy for a better child." Lucy felt anger rising in her chest, but kept her voice calm. "That's not true, little one. Your father loves you more than anything in this world. Aunt Deborah is saying very wrong things." "But she knows everything," Valentina retorted with childish logic. "She has diplomas on the wall. And she said that people like me who are a mistake need to be fixed or go away." At that moment, Lucy made a decision. It didn't matter if she lost her job or if Theodore didn't believe her. She had to act. "Valentina, do you trust me?" The girl nodded slowly. "Then listen to me. What Aunt Deborah is doing is very, very wrong. She's not helping you, she's hurting you. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure she doesn't hurt you anymore." As Valentina returned to her blocks, now a little calmer with the promise of protection, Lucy knew what she had to do. She waited for Theodore to finish his meeting and asked for a few minutes for an important conversation. In the study, Theodore looked tired. The grief for his wife, the worry for his daughter, and the pressures of work had drawn lines of exhaustion on his once jovial face. "Mr. Montgomery, I know you'll think I'm meddling, but I must insist, something is very wrong with Dr. Albright's sessions." She showed him the drawing and recounted her conversation with Valentina. With each word, Theodore's face grew paler. "This can't be true," he murmured, running his hands through his hair in a nervous gesture. "Deborah is a respected professional. Why would she do something like that?" "I don't know her motives," Lucy replied firmly, "but I know what I see. Your daughter is being psychologically tortured." Theodore sank into the chair, the weight of the possibility crushing him. But what if Valentina really is confused, as Deborah says? What if it's part of the therapeutic process? "I'm not a psychologist. I don't understand these advanced methods. Mr. Montgomery, with all due respect, no legitimate therapeutic method makes a child feel like a monster or threatens a child with medicine to sleep forever." Theodore nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll cancel today's session and seek a second opinion." He picked up the phone and called Deborah, informing her that Valentina was unwell and they would need to postpone the appointment. On the other end of the line, the therapist's voice subtly changed tone. "Theodore, interrupting treatment now could be catastrophic," she warned. "We are at a crucial moment in therapy. Valentina is about to make a significant breakthrough." "Just one day, doctor. She has a fever," he lied. "I understand," Deborah replied after a tense pause. "In that case, can I at least leave something for her? A therapeutic book we were working on. I can stop by quickly to drop it off. We don't need to have the session." Theodore hesitated, looking at Lucy, who was shaking her head negatively. "All right," he finally agreed. "You can leave it at the gatehouse of the community. I'll pick it up later." After hanging up, Theodore turned to Lucy. "What do we do now?" "We're going to look for proof," she replied with determination. "Deborah leaves her briefcase in the study during sessions, doesn't she? Let's see what's inside." Theodore looked shocked. "Are you suggesting we rummage through her belongings?" "That's an invasion of privacy." "And what is she doing to your daughter, sir? Do you think she cares about ethical boundaries?" A few hours later, Deborah messaged informing them that she had left a package at the gatehouse. Theodore went to retrieve it and returned with an elegant package containing a children's book about accepting our differences. And Surprisingly, a delicate gold bracelet with a heart charm. For our Valentina, to remember our special bond. Wear it tomorrow for the session, read the card signed by Deborah. How strange, Theodore commented, examining the expensive jewelry. She's never given gifts before. I don't like this, Lucy said, frowning. It feels like manipulation. Valentina, however, was fascinated by the sparkling bracelet. Reluctantly, Theodore allowed her to wear it, observing how the simple gift had brought a rare moment of joy to his daughter. That night, while Valentina slept with Thor at the foot of her bed, Theodore and Lucy talked in the living room, planning how they would get more information about Deborah. That's when the phone rang. It was the community's reception. Mr. Montgomery, Dr. Albright is here. She says she forgot something important at your house and needs to retrieve it urgently. Theodore looked at Lucy, alarmed. It was almost 10 at night. Tell her we're already in bed. She can come tomorrow during session hours, he replied. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang insistently. I can't believe she came anyway, Theodore said, getting up to answer. At the door, Deborah looked different. Her usual controlled demeanor showed signs of nervousness. Her eyes quickly scanned the interior of the house. Forgive me for the hour, Theodore, but I forgot my notebook. It's confidential. It contains information about other patients. I need to retrieve it immediately. I didn't see any notebook in the study, he replied, blocking the entrance. I'm sure we checked all your belongings when you left yesterday. It must have fallen in Valentina's room, she insisted, trying to look over his shoulder. Can I take a quick look? I won't wake her. No, my daughter is sleeping and I don't want to disturb her. If we find your notebook, I'll keep it for you to pick up tomorrow. Deborah's expression hardened for an instant before returning to her professional smile. Of course, I completely understand. Sorry for the inconvenience. The next morning, chaos ensued. The gold bracelet had disappeared. Valentina cried, desperate, fearing Deborah's reaction. Theodore and Lucy turned the house upside down looking for the jewelry. Auntie will be very angry, Valentina sobbed. She'll think I didn't take care of the special gift. As they searched every corner of the house, the doorbell rang. Deborah had arrived early for the session. What a surprise, Theodore commented nervously. I wasn't expecting you before 7. I thought I'd make up for the missed session yesterday, she replied with a smile. Where's our little one? In the living room, but we have a problem. The bracelet you gave her is gone. Deborah's face showed a studied concern. Oh, what a shame. It was a special gift to mark her progress. I hope you find it. While Theodore talked to Deborah at the entrance, Lucy continued searching. She decided to check her own room, though it was unlikely the jewelry would be there. As she opened her sock drawer, her heart stopped. There, glittering among her underwear, was the gold bracelet. Impossible, she murmured. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. The unexpected night visit, the insistence on entering, the unusual nervousness. Deborah had planted the bracelet in her things. Before she could react, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Deborah entered the room, followed by Theodore. Lucy, did you see it? He began, but stopped when he saw her guilty expression and the open drawer with the bracelet. I didn't put that here, Lucy stammered, realizing too late how incriminating the scene appeared. Deborah took a step forward, her face a mask of professional disappointment. Theodore, I'm sorry to say this, but we often see this behavior in caregivers. Envy, the desire to sabotage treatment. I suspected it when she interrupted our session, but I didn't want to believe it. No, Mr. Montgomery, she's lying. She planted this here, Lucy protested, desperate. Theodore looked from one to the other, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. Why would you do that, Lucy? We trusted you. I would never steal something from Valentina. Think, sir. Why would I keep the bracelet in my own drawer where anyone could find it? Classic denial, Deborah commented with false sadness. More concerning is what this might indicate about other behaviors. Perhaps we should talk about how she has influenced Valentina against the treatment. At that moment, little Valentina appeared at the door, hugging Thor. Her eyes widened at the scene, and upon noticing the bracelet in Theodore's hand. You found it, she exclaimed, running to grab it. It was with Lucy, sweetheart, Theodore said, his voice cold. Valentina looked at the nanny, confused. Lucy stole my bracelet? No, little one, I would never do that, Lucy replied, her eyes welling up. Sometimes people who seem to love us do things that hurt us, Valentina, Deborah said, kneeling to be at the girl's height. That's why our work together is so important, for you to learn to recognize who truly cares about you. The look Valentina cast at Lucy was full of doubt and fear. The seed of distrust had been planted. "Lucy," Theodore said in a controlled voice, "I think it's best we talk privately." In the study, the sentence was swift and painful. "I can no longer trust you with my daughter. I want you out of my house today." "Mr. Montgomery, please," Lucy pleaded, tears streaming freely down her face. "Don't. You see what's happening? She's separating us. First, she separated Valentina from you. Now she's separating me. She's going to isolate you completely." "Enough!" he thundered. "I've heard enough. Pay yourself for the week and leave by the end of the day." When she returned to her room to pack her bags, Lucy found Valentina hidden behind the door. "Are you leaving, Lucy?" the girl asked, her eyes red from crying. "Your father thinks it's for the best," Lucy replied, swallowing her tears. "It was Aunt Deborah, wasn't it? She said she would make you leave if you talked about the secrets." Lucy knelt, looking into the girl's eyes. "Val, I need you to be very brave. Don't believe the bad things Aunt Deborah says about you. You are not a monster, you are not defective, you are not a mistake. You are perfect exactly as you are, and your father loves you more than anything." "Will you come back?" Valentina asked, clinging to the nanny's hand. "I'll do everything I can to come back," Lucy promised. "And until then, remember, Thor is always with you. He knows the truth." As she closed her bags, Lucy made a decision. She would not abandon Valentina, even if she had to act from afar. Someone needed to open Theodore's eyes before it was too late. And in the next room, Deborah smiled contentedly as she placed a new document in her briefcase. A psychiatric hospitalization form, already partially filled with Valentina Montgomery's name. A week had passed since Lucy left the Montgomery estate. The persistent rain falling over Jordansfield seemed to mirror the gloomy mood that had settled in the place. Inside the large house, the silence was broken only by Thor's occasional bark and Valentina's increasingly rare whispers. Theodore watched his daughter with growing concern. She had stopped eating at the table, hiding with small portions of food that she took under her bed, or to Thor's doghouse in the garden. Her drawings, once full of colors even on the saddest days, were now just black and red scribbles, amorphous shadows that covered entire pages. "It's part of the therapeutic process," Deborah assured him at each session, now held daily. "Valentina is confronting her internal demons. Behavioral regression is expected before significant progress." Theodore wanted to believe. He needed to believe. The alternative, that he had delivered his vulnerable daughter into the hands of someone who was harming her, was too unbearable to contemplate. He had hired a new nanny, Eleanor, a 60-year-old woman with decades of experience. But Valentina refused to speak to her, hiding whenever the woman approached. "The girl needs time," Eleanor said, accustomed to traumatized children. "She lost her mother. Now she's lost the nanny she liked. It's normal for her to be defensive." What wasn't normal, the experienced woman thought without expressing it aloud, was the terror in the child's eyes when the clock struck 7 and the doorbell announced the therapist's arrival. Nor the way the dog, always so docile, growled and bared his teeth when Deborah entered the house. On a particularly rainy night, while Deborah conducted another session with Valentina, Theodore retired to his study. He needed to review important contracts, but he couldn't concentrate. Lucy's words echoed in his mind. "She's going to isolate you completely." Could it be possible? Was he handing his precious daughter over to a manipulator? The doubt gnawed at him, but at the same time the alternative seemed absurd. Deborah Albright was a respected professional, with an office in London's best area, recommended by influential colleagues. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp sound, a child's scream followed by Thor's frantic barking. Theodore ran down the hallway, reaching Valentina's bedroom door just in time to hear Deborah's voice, unrecognizable in its coldness. "If you keep crying like this, I'll have to tell your father that you need to go to a special place where they take care of problematic children like you." Theodore froze, his hand suspended, about to turn the doorknob. It was the same professional, controlled voice as always, but the words were of calculated cruelty. Silently, he took a few steps back. His heart pounded so hard he feared it could be heard. Instead of confronting Deborah immediately, he decided he needed concrete proof, not just to convince himself, but to protect Valentina if legal intervention was needed. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Theodore made 3 important phone calls. The first was to a friend who worked with security systems. The second to a private investigator recommended by his lawyer. The third, after long hesitation, was to the number Lucy had left when she departed. "I need your help," he said when she answered. "I think you were right about Deborah." While Valentina was in the garden with Thor and Eleanor, the security technician discreetly installed cameras in the girls' room and in the study where Deborah usually left her things. Small, practically invisible, they would record continuously and send the images directly to Theodore's cell phone. "Mr. Montgomery," said the private investigator Anthony Stone, a middle-aged man with a shrewd gaze, "I will start checking Dr. Albright's professional history immediately. Certifications, diplomas, previous jobs, everything will be thoroughly investigated." At 7 in the evening, as usual, the doorbell rang. Deborah entered, impeccable as always, but Theodore noticed something he had never perceived before. Her eyes didn't smile along with her lips. They were cold, calculating, evaluating every detail of the environment. "Valentina had a difficult day," he commented, following the plan devised with Lucy. "Perhaps we could shorten today's session?" "Absolutely not," Deborah replied with professional firmness. "Difficult days are when we most need therapeutic work. In fact, I've been thinking that perhaps we need to intensify the treatment." "Intensify?" Theodore asked, feeling a shiver run down his spine. "Yes," she confirmed, opening her expensive leather briefcase to pull out some papers. "I've observed concerning signs. Valentina is exhibiting behaviors consistent with severe reactive attachment disorder, possibly exacerbated by dissociative tendencies." Theodore tried to maintain a neutral expression, despite the alarm bells ringing in his mind. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means she may need a more controlled environment, a place where specialists can monitor her 24 hours a day." Deborah slid a brochure across the table. "This is the Pine Brook Institute, a clinic specializing in intensive child treatment. They have an excellent program for cases like hers." Theodore took the brochure, feigning interest as his stomach churned. It was a luxurious clinic, with images of well-kept gardens and rooms that looked more like a hotel. But the words intensive treatment and long-term hospitalization jumped out at him. "Hospitalization?" he asked, unable to completely hide his shock. "That seems extreme." Deborah gently touched his arm, a calculated gesture of false empathy. "Theodore, I know it's difficult, but you need to understand Valentina is in crisis. The crying episodes, the isolation, the refusal to eat, these are serious symptoms. I'm concerned about the risk of self-harm." "She's never hurt herself," he protested. "Not yet, but the signs are there." Deborah pulled a partially filled form from her briefcase. "This is an assessment form for hospitalization. We don't need to decide today, but I'd like you to read it, so we're prepared if her condition worsens." At that moment, Valentina appeared at the study door, hugging Thor, her eyes fixed on the colorful brochure on the table and then on the form. Something about those papers made her small body visibly tremble. "Valentina, dear, we were talking about a special place that can help you," Deborah said with a sweetness that now sounded false to Theodore's ears. "I don't want to leave," the girl whispered, clinging tighter to the Labrador's fur. "No one said you're leaving." "Princess," Theodore assured her, standing up to hug her. But Valentina recoiled, fear etched on her pale face. "See what I mean?" Deborah commented in a professional tone. "Effective detachment from the primary caregiver. Classic symptom of attachment disorder." Or maybe, Theodore thought, keeping the thought to himself, maybe she's scared because someone convinced her that her own father doesn't love her. That night, after Deborah left with the promise to return the next day, with more information about the clinic, Theodore locked himself in the study and with trembling hands accessed the hidden camera recordings. What he saw destroyed any remaining doubt. Deborah, alone with Valentina, was a completely different person. Her voice, once modulated and professional, became sharp as a blade. Her words, chosen to hurt, were aimed with surgical precision at the child's deepest insecurities. "Do you know why your father is always working, Valentina? To get away from you. Children like you drain people's energy. You're like a black hole destroying everything around you. The new nanny will leave too, you know. Everyone will. Because no one can stand being near such a problematic girl. Your mother was lucky to leave before she saw what you became. Theodore's stomach churned. He saw his daughter huddled in the corner of the room, crying silently, while Deborah continued the psychological assault. He saw how at the slightest sound of footsteps in the hallway, the therapist instantly changed her posture and tone, transforming back into the competent and caring professional. With hands trembling with rage, he picked up the phone and called Lucy. You were right. About everything. The next morning, while Valentina slept exhausted after another night of nightmares, Theodore received a visit from Anthony Stone, the investigator. Mr. Montgomery, what I've discovered is disturbing, he said, placing a folder on the study desk. Deborah Albright does not possess the specialization she claims in child trauma. Her doctorate degree is from an unaccredited online university. What? Theodore exclaimed, incredulous. That's not all. She was fired from 2 clinics in London for unethical conduct. The details were suppressed with confidentiality agreements, but I managed to speak with a former colleague who told me Deborah was accused of psychological abuse by families of 3 different patients. Theodore felt his blood run cold. How did she manage to keep her license? That's the most alarming point, Anthony continued, pulling more documents from the folder. She works in association with this man, Dr. Roger Fisher. He is a licensed psychiatrist and signs the reports she cannot issue herself. The Pinebrook Institute, Theodore murmured, remembering the brochure. Exactly. It's a private clinic where Dr. Fisher is the medical director. They charge fortunes for intensive treatments that are often unnecessary. I found 3 families whose children were hospitalized there after Deborah's recommendation. All reported complaints about drastic changes in the children's behavior after starting therapy with her. Theodore covered his face with his hands, feeling the weight of guilt crush him. How could he have been so blind? How could he have entrusted his precious Valentina into that woman's hands? There's one more thing, Anthony said, hesitant. I spoke with your former nanny, Lucy Oliver. She told me about the bracelet, and that made me investigate a pattern. In all previous cases, Deborah used similar techniques to drive away caregivers who started to suspect her. Valuable objects that disappeared and were found with the person she wanted to incriminate. At that moment, Eleanor knocked on the study door, her normally calm face contorted with worry. Mr. Montgomery, the girl is gone. She's nowhere in the house. Panic seized Theodore as he ran from room to room calling for his daughter. Thor had also disappeared, which gave a clue. Heading to the garden, he found the Labrador's doghouse empty. But on the side of the property, where the wall was lower and some trees projected outwards, there were paw prints in the wet earth and small footprints beside them. Valentina had run away, taking only her faithful friend. While Theodore and Eleanor went in search of the girl, Anthony Stone continued to search through the documents in his folder. Among them, he found something that made his blood run cold. A copy of the report Dr. Fisher was preparing for Valentina, recommending immediate hospitalization due to acute risk of self-harm and psychotic behavior. The trap was ready to close. At that very moment, walking under the fine drizzle falling over Jordansfield, Lucy Oliver was heading towards the Montgomery estate, determined to help save Valentina. What she didn't know was that, as she approached, a car parked at the property entrance. From it descended Deborah Albright and a middle-aged man with a severe expression, Dr. Roger Fisher, carrying a medical bag and an official involuntary hospitalization authorization document. The rain falling over Jordansfield intensified, turning into a storm that seemed to reflect the chaos that had settled in the Montgomerys' lives. Theodore ran through the community streets, desperately calling for Valentina, while Eleanor alerted the local security. 6-year-old girl, curly brown hair, accompanied by a chocolate Labrador. The breathless woman described to the gatehouse guard. She must have left through the back of the property near the woods. Lucy, who was approaching the mansion, saw the commotion and quickened her pace, her heart racing with a bad feeling. Turning the corner, she almost collided with Theodore. "Lucy! Valentina ran away!" he exclaimed, his face pale with worry, his hair and clothes soaked by the rain. "Ran away? What happened?" she asked, already joining the search. "I don't know. I was talking to the investigator about Deborah when Eleanor warned me Valentina had disappeared. Thor went with her." A momentary relief passed over Lucy's face. If Thor is with her, he will protect her. We need to think about where she could have gone. Somewhere special, a refuge. Meanwhile, at the Montgomery house, Deborah and Dr. Fisher were greeted by a community security guard who had been alerted to the situation. "Mr. Montgomery isn't here," the man informed them. "They're looking for his daughter, who has disappeared." Deborah's face contorted into a calculated expression of professional concern. "This is exactly what we feared, Roger. The escape is another symptom of her condition." Dr. Fisher nodded gravely. "Reason enough to accelerate the hospitalization process. We have to find her before she hurts herself." The guard, impressed by the authority emanating from the two professionals, allowed them to enter and wait in the house. "I'll let Mr. Montgomery know you're here." Meanwhile, Valentina and Thor had found refuge in a small abandoned gazebo in the woods surrounding the community. The wooden structure, almost hidden by vines and partially destroyed by time, offered precarious shelter from the rain. Huddled in a corner, the girl hugged the large dog who, sensing her fear, remained alert, ears perked at the slightest sound. "It's okay, Thor," she whispered, more to calm herself than the animal. "Lucy will find us. She promised she'd come back." A few meters away, Theodore and Lucy searched the woods, calling for Valentina. The rain made visibility difficult and muffled their voices. "We need to think like her," Lucy said, trying to stay calm. "Where would a scared child go?" "Wait," Theodore suddenly stopped. "Remember the old gazebo? The previous owner built it for his wife, but it was never used after they moved out. Valentina discovered it last month playing with Thor. She called it the Enchanted Castle." Lucy's eyes lit up. "Of course. A secret hiding place away from the house. That's where she'd go." In the gazebo, Thor suddenly raised his head, his eyes fixed on the entrance. A low growl vibrated in his chest. "What is it, Thor?" Valentina asked, pressing herself closer to the dog's warm body. Footsteps approached, crushing leaves and branches. They weren't her father's hurried steps or Lucy's light walk. It was a determined, almost aggressive stride. "Valentina? Are you in there, dear?" called a voice the girl recognized immediately, making her blood run cold. It was Deborah. Thor growled louder, positioning himself protectively in front of Valentina. The girl trembled, torn between paralyzing fear and the desire to flee again. "I know you're scared," Deborah continued, approaching the gazebo. "But I'm here to help. Your father is very worried." Inside the small shelter, Valentina covered her mouth with her hands to stifle a sob. Thor, however, couldn't contain a menacing bark when Deborah's silhouette appeared at the entrance. "Ah, there you are," the woman said, her professional smile not reaching her cold eyes. "And with your dog." "How touching." Thor advanced a few steps, teeth bared, the fur on his back bristling. "Get that animal away," Deborah ordered, backing away slightly. "Thor, no!" Valentina cried, fearing for her friend. The dog stopped but continued growling. "You've been a very disobedient girl, Valentina," Deborah said, her voice now stripped of false sweetness. "Running away like this, worrying your father. This only proves how much you need special help. The kind of help only the Pinebrook Institute can offer." "I don't want to go," Valentina protested, tears streaming down her face. "It's not a matter of wanting to," Deborah retorted coldly. "Your father has already signed the papers. You're going to the clinic today." It was a lie, but Valentina had no way of knowing. Her small body began to tremble uncontrollably. "Daddy wouldn't do that," she whispered, but her voice betrayed the doubt Deborah had planted for months in her fragile mind. "Oh, dear," Deborah replied with false compassion. "So your father is exhausted dealing with a problematic child like you. He wants his life back. It's understandable, don't you think? Since your mother left, you've been an increasingly heavy burden." The words hit Valentina like physical blows. For months, Deborah had hammered these ideas into her mind, that she was a burden, a monster, a mistake. And part of her was beginning to believe it. "Come with me now," Deborah ordered, extending her hand. "Dr. Fisher is waiting for us in the car. He has special medicine to help you calm down during the trip." Thor growled louder, advancing again. This time, Deborah didn't back down. She took a small metallic object from her bag, a shock device to ward off animals. "If that dog comes any closer, I'll have to use this," she threatened. "And it would be a shame to hurt the only friend you have left, wouldn't it?" Valentina's tears now flowed freely. She was trapped, with no way out. Maybe Deborah was right all along. Maybe she really was a monster that no one could love. It was at that moment that a voice cut through the air, rising above the sound of the rain. "Get away from her!" Theodore and Lucy emerged at the gazebo entrance, breathless and soaked. Behind them, Anthony Stone appeared, holding a cell phone that was recording the scene. Deborah's face instantly transformed, the professional mask falling perfectly back into place. "Theodore, thank goodness you're here. I found Valentina hiding here. She's very scared." "I heard everything, Deborah," Theodore said, his voice trembling with contained anger. "Every word you said to my daughter." Deborah's smile wavered for an instant. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I was just trying to calm her down, using therapeutic techniques." "Enough lies," Theodore interrupted. "I know who you really are. I know about your dismissals for unethical conduct, about your partnership with Fisher, about the scheme to hospitalize children unnecessarily." Deborah's face lost all color. Her eyes moved quickly between Theodore, Lucy, and the investigator, who continued filming. "I don't know what nonsense you've been hearing, but—" "I installed cameras in Valentina's room," Theodore cut in. "I saw how you treated her when you thought no one was looking. I heard the horrible things you said. How could you do that to a 6-year-old child?" Deborah's disguise completely crumbled. Her face contorted into an expression of rage and contempt. "You don't understand anything, do you?" she hissed. "Children, like Valentina, damaged, traumatized, they never fully recover. I just speed up the process, help parents see reality. And people like you, lonely widowers with money and guilt, are as easy to manipulate as children." Valentina, who had been listening wide-eyed, ran into her father's arms. "Daddy!" she cried, clinging to his legs. Theodore lifted her into his arms, hugging her tightly. "It's okay now, my love. Daddy's here. No one will hurt you." At that moment, Thor began to bark furiously. At the entrance to the woods, Dr. Fisher approached, accompanied by 2 community security guards. "What's going on here?" the doctor asked, observing the scene with suspicion. "Roger, they're trying to prevent the treatment," Deborah exclaimed, quickly recomposing her professional facade. "The girl needs immediate hospitalization. You yourself signed the report." "A report based on false information," Anthony interjected, still filming. "Dr. Fisher, you are aware that we are documenting all of this, aren't you? Including your participation in the scheme to unnecessarily hospitalize children at the Pinebrook Institute?" The doctor paled, looking nervously at Deborah. "What scheme?" "I merely evaluated the patient according to the reports presented." "Fabricated reports," Theodore said. "My daughter is not problematic or dangerous. The only real danger in her life has been this woman, who manipulated and psychologically abused her for months." One of the security guards stepped forward, confused. "Mr. Montgomery, Dr. Albright said your daughter needed urgent medical help, that she was in crisis." "The only crisis here," Lucy responded, approaching Valentina and stroking her wet hair, "is the one Deborah deliberately created." Deborah looked around, realizing she was cornered. Her expression hardened, the professional veneer completely disappearing. "You're pathetic, Theodore," she spat. "A weak man who can't even recognize when a woman is interested in him. Months visiting your house, creating opportunities, and you only had eyes for your precious, damaged little girl." The revelation hit Theodore like a punch. Was that why? All this psychological torment, all these manipulations, because you wanted to win me over? "You were perfect," Deborah continued, her voice filled with bitterness. "Rich, handsome, lonely, desperately needing a strong woman to guide you. But you couldn't see beyond that child. She would always be an obstacle between us. So you decided to psychologically destroy her to remove her from the path," Anthony concluded, his voice filled with contempt. "Don't be dramatic," Deborah retorted. "Hospitalizations are temporary, 6 months, maybe a year. Enough time for Theodore to rediscover his life, to realize he could be happy again, with me." Valentina cowered in her father's arms, hiding her face in his chest. Thor positioned himself protectively beside them, his eyes fixed on Deborah. "You two are under arrest," one of the security guards announced, addressing Deborah and Dr. Fisher. "The police are on their way." "On what charge?" Deborah challenged. "I haven't done anything illegal. I'm a therapist using unconventional methods, that's all." "Psychological torture of a child," Theodore replied firmly. falsification of medical reports, attempted fraudulent hospitalization, extortion, and that's just the beginning. We have everything recorded, Deborah. Not just here today, but weeks of sessions in Valentina's room. Deborah's face contorted into a mask of hatred. You'll regret this, Theodore. Who will believe you against me? I have a reputation, connections. Your daughter is already marked as problematic in medical records. Who will believe an unstable child? I believe her, Lucy said firmly. And I do, Anthony added. And the parents of the other children you manipulated, Theodore completed. I spoke with 3 families last night, all willing to testify about your methods. That's when sirens began to wail in the distance, approaching quickly. The rain finally subsided, as if nature itself recognized that the main storm had passed. Theodore knelt, gently placing Valentina on the ground but keeping her close. It's all right now, Princess. The bad woman won't hurt you anymore. Valentina looked at Deborah, who was now being escorted out of the woods by the security guards, along with Dr. Fisher. Her small hand squeezed Theodore's. Daddy, she asked in a trembling voice, was she the monster? Theodore felt tears burn his eyes. He hugged his daughter tightly, feeling her fragile little body tremble against his. Yes, my love, she was the monster. And monsters can't hurt you anymore. Lucy knelt beside them and Thor immediately approached, licking the tears from Valentina's face. Let's go home, Lucy said softly. It's getting cold out here. Together, like a reunited family, they walked slowly back to the mansion, leaving behind the gazebo that had served as a refuge and stage for the final confrontation. Ahead of them the sky began to clear, the storm clouds moving away to reveal a timid late-afternoon sun. The battle was won, but everyone knew that the war for Valentina's recovery was just beginning. Months of psychological abuse had left deep marks on the little girl. But now, at least, she had her father, Lucy, Thor, and most importantly, the truth by her side. At the mansion's entrance, Theodore stopped and turned to Lucy. Thank you, he said simply, his voice choked with emotion. I wouldn't have found out in time without you. Lucy smiled, stroking Valentina's still damp hair. Some battles we can't fight alone. On the porch, Eleanor waited for them with dry towels and hot chocolate. And for the first time in many months, Theodore saw a genuine smile light up his daughter's face. 3 months passed since the day of the storm. Winter gave way to spring in Jordansfield, and with it small changes began to blossom at the Montgomery estate. The first week after Deborah and Dr. Fisher's arrest had been the most difficult. Valentina, traumatized by months of psychological abuse, refused to sleep in her own room. She spent nights in Thor's doghouse in the garden, curled against the faithful Labrador's fur, waking up screaming from recurring nightmares. She needs time, explained Dr. Mariana Davies, the true child therapist Theodore hired, after meticulous research and multiple interviews. Her trust was deeply violated. We cannot force the healing process. Unlike Deborah, Mariana didn't wear impeccable suits or carry expensive leather briefcases. She came to sessions in jeans and colorful blouses, with a backpack full of art supplies and therapeutic games. Her methods didn't involve incomprehensible jargon or revolutionary techniques, just attentive listening, infinite patience, and absolute respect for Valentina's pace. I don't want to talk to her alone, Mariana told Theodore on the first day. I want you and Lucy to participate in the initial sessions. Valentina needs to feel safe, and you are her safe haven now. The first sessions took place in the living room, with Thor always present, sometimes even in the garden, near the doghouse where Valentina still felt most protected. There was no pressure to talk, just drawings, games, and stories that slowly allowed the girl to express her emotions. Can monsters love? Valentina asked one afternoon while drawing with crayons. You're not a monster, Val, Theodore replied immediately. I know, Daddy, she said, surprising everyone. But what if I was? Can monsters also feel love? Mariana smiled gently. What do you think, Val? Is Thor a monster? The girl's eyes widened, indignant. Of course not. Thor is good and gentle. Even when he growls and shows his teeth to protect you? Valentina considered the question for a moment. For that doesn't make him a monster. It makes him a protector. Exactly, Mariana agreed. Sometimes people confuse scary appearances or behaviors with malice, but what truly matters is what's inside us, our capacity to love and protect. It was the first of many small breakthroughs. Over the weeks, Valentina gradually returned to using her room, though still with the door open, and Thor always at the foot of the bed. Slowly, she began to eat regularly again, first only with Lucy, then also with her father and Eleanor at the table. The case against Deborah and Dr. Fisher progressed in the courts. Anthony Stone, the investigator, had located 5 more families whose children had been victims of the same scheme. The network of manipulation and unnecessary hospitalizations was beginning to be dismantled, revealing a much larger scheme than they had imagined. "Will she be in prison for a long time?" Valentina asked one night as Theodore tucked her in. "Yes, Princess. She will never hurt you or any other child again." "And you won't send me away? To that place for problematic children?" Theodore felt his heart tighten. "Never, my love, never. You are the most important person in my life, and your place is here with me. Forever." For the first time in months, Valentina hugged her father spontaneously, allowing herself to be enveloped by his love. Lucy, who had been invited to return to the mansion shortly after Deborah's arrest, watched the father-daughter relationship blossom again with tears in her eyes. Her role had expanded. She was no longer just the nanny, but an essential ally in the healing process, someone Valentina trusted completely. The relationship between Lucy and Theodore also evolved slowly. The shared trauma and the fight to protect Valentina had created a special bond between them. It wasn't romance, not yet, but a deep mutual respect and affection that grew with each small victory in Valentina's recovery. On a sunny September afternoon, while Valentina played with Thor in the garden under Eleanor's watchful eye, Theodore found Lucy on the porch, watching the scene with a smile. "She asked to go to school," Theodore said, sitting beside Lucy. "She said she wants to have friends her age." "That's wonderful," Lucy exclaimed. "It's a huge step." "I'm scared," he confessed. "What if the other children notice she's different? That she's been through something traumatic?" Lucy gently touched Theodore's hand. "All children are different in their own way. And Valentina is strong, stronger than we imagine. She will find her place." The following week, Valentina started classes at Aurora School, a small private school known for its caring and individualized approach. Theodore had spoken beforehand with the principal and the teacher, explaining the situation without going into traumatic details. The first few days were difficult. Valentina remained isolated, observing the other children from a distance. But on the 5th day, something changed. "Daddy, Daddy!" she cried as she ran into the mansion after school. "I have a friend. Her name is Julia, and she doesn't have a mommy either. And she said my hair is pretty." It was as if a dam had broken. Valentina talked non-stop during dinner, describing Julia, her favorite drawings, how they shared lunch. Her eyes sparkled with an animation that Theodore and Lucy hadn't seen in a long time. "Can I bring Thor for her to meet one day?" she asked eagerly. "Of course, Princess," Theodore replied, exchanging an emotional look with Lucy. "Maybe we can invite Julia to play here on the weekend." As October progressed, small miracles continued to happen. Valentina returned to using bright colors in her drawings. She started singing in the shower again, children's songs she had forgotten during the dark period with Deborah, and, most surprisingly, she began to talk about her mother. "Mommy really liked gardens, didn't she, Daddy?" she asked one afternoon while helping Lucy plant flowers. "I think she would like these daisies." "Yes, my love," Theodore replied, swallowing his emotion. "They were her favorites." "I think she would like Lucy too," Valentina added with the disconcerting sincerity of children, "because Lucy takes care of us just like Mommy used to." Lucy felt her face flush, but Theodore merely smiled, his eyes meeting hers over Valentina's head. "I'm sure she would, Princess. Your mother would have loved Lucy." In sessions with Dr. Davies, Valentina began to talk more openly about what she had experienced with Deborah. With the help of dolls and drawings, she expressed the confusion and fear she had felt, the lies she had believed, the terror of thinking she was a monster or a mistake. "How do you feel now?" Mariana asked gently, after a particularly intense session. Valentina thought for a moment, distractedly stroking Thor, who never left her side. "I'm still scared sometimes. I still think about the bad things," she said. "But then I remember that Daddy and Lucy truly love me, and that Thor always knows when someone is bad." "Thor is very wise," Mariana agreed with a smile. "And I know now that I'm not a monster," Valentina added with determination. "I'm just a girl who was very sad when Mummy left. But that doesn't make me defective. There were relapses, of course. Nights when the nightmares returned. Days when a casual word or gesture triggered traumatic memories. Moments when Valentina closed herself off again, seeking the safety of Thor's doghouse. But each time the dark period lasted less and recovery came faster. On a November morning, 6 months after the confrontation in the gazebo, Theodore found Valentina sitting on the mansion's porch, drawing intently. He approached silently so as not to interrupt her creation. It was a drawing of 3 people holding hands, a tall man, a dark-haired woman, and a small girl between them. Beside the trio, a large brown dog, and above in colorful letters the words, "My family." "It's beautiful, Princess," Theodore said, sitting beside his daughter. Valentina smiled, showing the drawing proudly. "It's you, Lucy, me, and Thor. We're a family now, aren't we?" Theodore felt his heart quicken. He and Lucy had grown closer in recent months, but they had been cautious, focusing first on Valentina's recovery. There had been dinners after the girls slept, long conversations on the porch under the starry sky, a shy kiss after a particularly emotional day. But they had never discussed the future, fearing to rush things. "Would you like us to be?" he asked cautiously. "Yes," Valentina exclaimed without hesitation. "Lucy truly loves me. And she makes you smile again, just like Mommy used to." At that moment, Lucy appeared at the door, carrying a tray with juices and cookies. Seeing the two, she stopped, sensing the intensity of the moment. "We're talking about family," Theodore explained, getting up to help her with the tray. "Val thinks the 4 of us, her, me, you, and Thor, make a good team." Lucy placed the tray on the small table on the porch and knelt to be at Valentina's height. "What do you think about that, little one?" "I think it would be perfect," the girl replied, her eyes shining. "You already take care of us, you already live here. And Daddy is happy when you're around." Lucy and Theodore exchanged a meaningful look over Valentina's head. "Val, why don't you take these cookies to Thor?" Theodore suggested. "I'm sure he'll love them." As soon as the girls skipped off towards the garden where Thor rested under a tree, Theodore took Lucy's hands in his. "I know it's early," he began nervously. "I know we're all still healing. But Val is right, we are a family now. In a way I never planned, but that feels so right." "Theodore," Lucy interrupted softly, her eyes shining with emotion, "we don't need to rush anything. The important thing is that Valentina is recovering, and we are here for her. The rest, we can build little by little." He nodded, smiling. "One day at a time?" "One day at a time," she agreed, leaning in for a brief, sweet kiss. From that day forward, a new routine was established in the mansion, no longer marked by fear and distrust, but by small moments of rediscovered joy. Breakfast together every morning, with Valentina recounting her dreams, now rarely nightmares. Thor always nearby, his elevated status as protector recognized by everyone. Dr. Mariana coming twice a week, her sessions more focused on strengthening Valentina's self-esteem than on processing trauma. Theodore returned to work normally, but never again allowed the office to become more important than his daughter. Lucy balanced the role of nanny and something more, a maternal figure who didn't replace Cecilia's memory, but offered her own kind of love and care. Eleanor continued in the house, becoming a kind of surrogate grandmother for Valentina, always ready with old stories and comforting recipes. On a sunny December morning, as the hydrangeas began to bloom again in the mansion's garden, Valentina surprised everyone by waking up and announcing, "I don't want to sleep in Thor's doghouse anymore." "No?" Theodore asked, surprised. Even recovering well, Valentina still occasionally sought refuge in the doghouse on difficult days. "No," she confirmed with determination. "The doghouse is for playing now, not for hiding." That same afternoon, Valentina asked to redecorate her room. The walls, once covered with dark drawings from the period with Deborah, were painted a cheerful light yellow. The dark curtains gave way to light fabrics with floral prints. And above her bed, a new painting, painted by herself at school, a bright rainbow with the phrase, "I am me." "You know, Daddy," she said as they organized her books on the renovated shelf, "I think I understood something." "What, my love?" "Aunt Deborah was the monster, not me. But she was a monster, because she was hurt inside. That doesn't mean she could hurt me, but maybe that's why she did bad things." Theodore paused, impressed by the wisdom of his 7-year-old daughter. "How did you come to that conclusion?" Valentina shrugged with the simplicity of childhood. "Dr. Mariana taught me that when people are in a lot of pain, sometimes they hurt other people. It doesn't make it right, but it helps to understand." That night, as Valentina slept peacefully in her newly decorated room, Theodore and Lucy sat on the porch, contemplating the stars that dotted the clear Jordansfield sky. "I think she's really healing," Theodore said, his voice choked with emotion. "In a way I didn't think possible 6 months ago. Children have an incredible capacity for recovery when they are surrounded by true love," Lucy replied, snuggling beside him. "And Valentina has that in abundance now." "Thanks to you," he said, gently kissing her forehead. "You never gave up on her even when I failed." "You didn't fail, Theodore. You were deceived by an experienced manipulator. The important thing is that when you discovered the truth, you fought with all your strength for your daughter." A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only by the nocturnal sounds of the garden and the quiet breathing of Thor, who slept at their feet. "Do you know what Valentina asked me today?" Lucy commented after a while. "What?" "If we could have a little brother or sister for her one day." Theodore choked on the wine he was drinking, making Lucy laugh. "She doesn't waste time, does she?" he commented, recovering. "Like mother, like daughter," Lucy replied with a shy smile. "Always straight to the point." Theodore took her hand in his, suddenly serious. "Lucy, I know we talked about taking it slow, one day at a time, but I want you to know, I'm completely in love with you. For your heart, your courage, your kindness, and if one day you want to build something permanent with me and Val." Lucy silenced him with a kiss. "We're already building it, Theo, brick by brick, day after day, and it's the most beautiful project of my life." The next morning, Valentina woke up with the sun shining in her yellow room. Thor, always vigilant, raised his head at the little girl's first movement. She smiled at the dog, stroking his soft fur. "Let's go have breakfast, Thor," she said animatedly. "Today there's school, and Julia is going to show her travel photos." Going down the stairs, Valentina heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Peeking through the door, she saw Lucy and her father preparing breakfast together, exchanging glances and smiles that, even for a 7-year-old child, were clearly full of love. Before announcing her presence, Valentina paused for a moment, absorbing the scene. She thought of her mother, not with paralyzing sadness as before, but with a sweet longing that could now coexist with present happiness. She thought of Deborah and the months of darkness, no longer with terror, but with the growing understanding that it was over forever. And then, looking at her father and Lucy, at Thor by her side, at the sun streaming through the windows of the once gloomy mansion, Valentina did something that 6 months earlier seemed impossible. She smiled unreservedly, ran into the kitchen, and immersed herself in the simple joy of an ordinary morning with her reconstructed family. That night, before going to sleep, Valentina looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. For a brief moment she heard the distant echo of Deborah's voice. "You are a monster. A mistake, a burden." But then, straightening her shoulders as Lucy had taught her, she looked firmly into her own eyes and whispered the words she now knew to be true. "I am not a monster. I am me." And for the first time she believed it completely. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope Valentina, Theodore and Lucy's story has deeply touched your hearts. To follow other emotional narratives like this, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking the link on the left. If this journey of healing and new beginnings moved you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Daily, we bring unique stories that explore the complexities of life, love, and human resilience. Share your thoughts and emotions in the comments. We want to know how this story resonated with you. Until our next narrative journey.